everyone! This video is going to be about working with multiple classes. I don't know if you noticed, but in my last couple videos I have started to edit my videos less aggressively just because the editing is so much work. So I'm hoping to cut down on my editing time a little bit. So you'll probably be hearing a lot more ums and uhs and pauses in my videos. I'll take out the really long pauses and the really egregious stuff, but for the most part I'm just going to be doing a lot less editing. So hopefully it doesn't impact the quality of the videos too much. But I just wanted to throw that note in there. And let's get started with this video. So for this video, we're going to build on the employee class that we created in a previous video. I believe it was the video about converting existing code into a class. So first, let's just reacquaint ourselves with this class so that we know what's in it and what it does. So you see I'm on this employee demo module that we created to demonstrate the class in action. You see here we declared and instantiated the C employees class, which is over here. And so we created a employee named Deborah Smith, made her a seasonal employee, and then printed out her employee forms. And then we did something similar down here with Frank Jackson, but it's commented out right now. And so if we go into the employee class, we can see we have 3 private variables declared: first name, last name, and employment type, which is an enumeration. And just to refresh our memories, the enumeration is over here in this public entities module. And this just lists the different employment types that an employee can be classified as. So back to the employee class module. And as we said, we have these 3 variables that are private to the class for these properties. And then down here we have set the properties themselves. We have a getter property and a setter property. It's actually in VBA, it's called let, unless it's some kind of object. Then the keyword actually is set, but for anything like a string or an integer or any kind of simple type, it's just let. So the setter property allows us to set the value for this variable outside of the class. So if we go back and look at our demo, we see here we are setting the value of the variable. So when we set this first name to be Deborah, what happens is the first name gets passed here into this property, and the value that we passed, the name Deborah, gets set to this private variable, which is this one here, which is a variable that is private to this class. It's global within the class, so we can use this variable anywhere within the class, but we cannot use it outside of the class because it's private to this variable. We cannot see it outside of the class. And so to solve that problem that we cannot see it outside of the class, we have what is called a getter property here. And so what this getter allows us to do is it allows us to get the variable that we have set. Regardless of where we set it. We could have set it somewhere inside of the class module here, or in the case of Deborah Smith, we set it outside of the class. So let me give you an example of the getter. So if we wanted to get this value back out, say I could create a variable. I'll just create a string variable sname, and then I can set that variable equal to the first name in this class. And then I'll have to put in a statement here so that we can see the value. So we'll just do a debug print statement to see the name. And then if I run this code, then we see, well, we got this running too. That's why all this came up. But this name here is a result of this debug statement. And so we see that the name is Deborah. And so the way that we got this value out was through this getter statement. What happened was we recalled this value, or not. We kind of got this value out. We got the value of this property. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. We got the value out of the class that we had assigned up here. Okay, so that's that. And so we have that for all three of our variables up here. We have the getters and setters. And then down here we had put some methods. These are just dummy methods that do this debug statement that gives a first name, a last name, and the employment type. And so we have several of these for the various employment types. And then we have this other method that prints the employee forms. So it picks the appropriate employment type, and it prints, as we saw here, it just prints out the first name, the last name, and the employment type. And so this select case is choosing based on the employment type that we set here. This select case is choosing which one of these methods down here to print. And this method is public because this is the only one we need to see outside of the class. All of these private ones we do not need to access from outside of the class. We're never going to run these directly out here when the class is instantiated because we don't need to. They just get picked from here. And so this is the only public one, and these are all private, so that they're not kind of cluttering up the space when we have the class instantiated. They're not out there confusing us and just making things harder to deal with. Okay, so I think that's it for the recap on this. We have one other module here that we didn't look at, and this is all commented out because when we were this is the code that we converted to a class, and we're not using it anymore. So I'm just going to remove this module because we don't need it and we don't want the added confusion. So just right click and do remove module, and then just say no when it asks if you want to export it. Okay, so now that we have done that, let's go to our employee class and let's add some things to it. So we might look at this employee class and say, okay, this is all right, but it doesn't really tell me much about the employee. I just know the first name, the last name, and the employment type. And so maybe I need some more information about this employee. So let's add some more properties to store some more information. So some of the things that we can add, and I'll just list them for you quickly, and if you want to add them yourself and then skip forward, you can do that. But if you want to go through and add them, see me add them, then I'll do that as well. So I'm going to add an employee number, a department, and a branch. And I'm going to add an address. And then after that, we're going to add a couple methods. But for now, we're just going to work on the properties. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to add is the employee number. And that's going to be a string. So I'm just going to call that employee number. And these are all going to be strings. And then I'll add the department. Actually, before we add this department, let's Oh, and let me show you guys something that really was the bane of my existence for a long time until actually not I figured it out. Somebody else told me about this. You see how I typed this and then I decided I wanted to do something else, and I moved away from it and it turned red. And maybe what you're getting is a pop-up window that you have to close, and it just bugs the heck out of you. So the way you can get rid of that is if you go into Tools and Options, and then I believe this one here, this auto syntax check, if you uncheck it, let me turn it back on and see what happens. Let me just type something. Yeah, see, now I get this compile error, expected identifier, and that close the window. You have to do that every time you have a line that doesn't make sense in this way, that's kind of incomplete like that. And so if you come in here, again, Tools, Options, and uncheck this auto syntax check, click OK, then you are able to leave the line without getting that pop-up message. So that vastly improved my quality of life when I found out about that. And so hopefully that helps you too. But anyway, what I was going to do is I decided let's make the department, just so we get some more practice on this, and probably it's a better way to do it anyway. Let's go over to public entities and we'll create a new enumeration. So I'm just going to copy this one. And then I'm going to change the name to department. And then, let's see, I'll make this, I don't know, accounting. And we'll have a sales department. And then we'll have IT and customer service. Oops. And actually, let's do the same thing for, and then just erase these. Let's do the same thing for the branch. So let's put in another enumeration for the branch. So let's do branch, and we'll do one in New York. We'll do one in Los Angeles. Is that how you spell Angeles? I don't know. Close enough. And let's do one in Houston. And let's do a few international ones. We'll do one in Berlin. We'll do one in London. And we'll do one in Accra. And we'll do one in Bogota. Just trying to get some international places in there for maybe some of my international listeners, who I also appreciate. Okay, so now we have 3 enumerations. And so let's go back to our employee class, and we'll put in the department. And the type is going to be this enumeration that we just created. And the branch is also going to be the other enumeration that we created. Okay, and so now we have 3 more properties, and we just need to create the getters and setters for them. Okay, so the first one is a string, so I'm just going to copy this first name, which is also a string, the getter and the setter, and I'm going to paste it down here, and then I'm going to change I'm going to change the name of the property. I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to Control H, and I'm going to change first name to this employee number that I copied, for the selected text is already chosen. And then replace all. And that's that. I have my getters and setters for employee number, and then I'm going to do the same thing for these enumerations. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this one again. So I'm just going to, again, Control H, and I'm going to change first name to department, place all, and then on this one I also need to change the type. I need to change the string to the department twice. And then my last one is the branch. So again, I'm going to copy this because I can't remember if I copied something else since then. And I'll just change this to branch, place all, and then I need to change this one to the branch in both places, the getter and the setter. Okay, so now we have 6 private variables up here and 6 sets of getters and setters for those variables. And so the next thing that we wanted to add was an address. So let's do that now. This one is actually going to have, we're going to have separate properties for the street address, and then we're going to have a street address 2. I'm just going to call it, that's going to be for like apartment number or a suite number or something like that. And then city, state, and zip code. So we're going to have 5 total. So let's put those in. And actually I'll just copy this so that I paste it. So it's going to be, the first one is going to be, oops, I got to put my P, street address. And that's going to be a string. And then we're going to have street address 2. Maybe I'll put an underscore there so I see it more clearly. And that's also going to be a string. And then we're going to have the city. Again, all of these are strings. And then we'll have the state. And we'll have the zip code. Okay, so now, again, we just need to create our properties for these. So I'll copy this, and I'm just going to copy it down here 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I will change these. Let me get some spaces in here so I can see them kind of separated more. Okay, and so let's change the, this is street address, so let's change this to street address, and then this one is also street address. So actually I'm gonna copy this and change that one, and then I'm just going to make this underscore 2 on these. Actually, let me do it through here so I don't mess it up. And then just to make sure I got them all. Okay, and now this one, let's change this to city. And this one's going to be state. And this one's going to be zip code. All right. So now we have all of our address information in here. And so now we can move on to creating our methods. I wanted to create, actually it's just going to be one method. It's going to, and the other one is actually going to be a property, another property, but it's not going to be like these other ones. So I'm going to create a method. Actually, it is going to be two methods, but we're going to create another property for one of the methods. So I want a property that is going to display the full name of the person. But for this method, we're only going to use the getter because we're not going to need the setter because we're not going to set the full name from outside of the class. We're going to set it inside of the class here. So let me show you. So I'm going to copy this getter for the zip code, and I'm going to change the zip code to full name is what I'm going to replace it with for this one. And then instead of getting the value from a variable that we have up here, we're going to just set it right inside of the property here. And so it's going to be, and it's going to be not the full name, it's going to be the first name. And then it's going to be a space and the last name. And so again, we don't need the letter like we have in these others, or the setter like we have in these other properties, because we are not going to set the value of this variable outside of the class. We're not going to set it like this. We're just going to get it from the first name and the last name, which are being set outside of the class. Oops. Which are being set outside of the class out here. But once we have those, we're just going to concatenate them, and that's going to be our full name. Okay, so we don't need the setter. All right. So now let's write a method to write the full name or display the full name. Let's just put it in a message box just to make it easy on ourselves. So this needs to be a public sub because we need to be able to access it outside of the class. And let's call it show full name. And we'll just do a message box. Full name. And that's it. We'll do okay only. And that will display the full name for us. And so that's the first method. And then the next method that we'll put in is, let's make a method to write the address to the spreadsheet. And we're just going to do this in a real simple way. There are better ways to write information like this to a spreadsheet, but we are not going to use any of those better ways because that is not the focus of this video, and we don't want to worry about that at all. We just want something really simple that's very clear, easy to understand, and just keep it simple so that we're not getting more confused than we need to be. Okay, so this one also needs to be public. And let's call this write address to spreadsheet. Okay. And now that we have that, we're just going to start in cell A1, and we're going to write the information just one line at a time. So we're going to do sheet 1, range A1, value is going to be the street address from the private variable. And then we're basically just gonna copy this. I think we said we had 5 fields for the address, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm just gonna change this to B, C, D. No, that's columns. Well, either way, doesn't matter. But I said I was gonna do rows, so let's just do that. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and so now we can just put our values in here. This is going to be this second street address, and then this will be the city, and this will be the state. Oops. And this will be the zip code. All right, so there's our method to write our address to the spreadsheet. And so this is done. So if we want to test it out, let's go over back here to our, oops, I keep hitting that one. I want this one. So let's go over here to our public, I'm still trying to say public entities. Let's go back over here to our employee demo. And, okay, this is bugging me, so I'm just going to line these up, even though I don't really need this. Actually, I'm just going to take this out. Get rid of that. Get rid of this. And now at the bottom here, and I'm just gonna comment this out. Actually, I'm just gonna delete it. We don't need that either. All right. And so let's test these out. So we had 2 new methods. So if I do my dot, you see that we have all of this new information that we added. We have the employee number, we have the branch, the department, all that stuff is here now for us to choose. And we had 2 new methods, which are the show full name and the write address to the spreadsheet. So let's test those out now. So if I do full show name, and we'll just put them both in here, and then we'll run this, and there's our showing of the full name, Deborah Smith. And this does not seem to be working. Oh wait, yeah, this does not seem to be working correctly. So let's see what the problem is with this. Oh, user error. I didn't put an address in. So let's put our address in, and then we'll have something to actually write to the spreadsheet. Okay, so we're just going to call this 123 Main Street. And I'm not going to put in an apartment number or anything. Well, let's just put it in just to test it out. And we'll put apartment A. Got an extra something in here. Oh, okay. And then, I don't know why I put a period after that. And then we'll do the city is New York. The state, yep, the state is also New York. I guess this would actually be New York City. And then the zip code is going to be whatever New York City zip code is, 10010. I guess. I don't know. That's probably not right, but whatever. Okay, so now that we have our address in, before we get to this function, this should work now. And I'm just going to comment this out because we already know that works. And there it is. There's our address. And this is right aligned because it's actually a string, not a number, as it should be. Just as a side note, anything like phone numbers, zip codes, employee numbers, that type of thing, they need to be, well, they don't need to be, but they should be strings because they are, even though it's all numbers, it's not numbers that we are going to use in mathematical calculations. We only need to declare numbers as a numerical data type if we are going to be using them to do some kind of math. All right, so that's working great. And so let's come back to our employee class and take a look at it. And now when we look at this, we say, wow, that is a whole lot of stuff. Which is fine. Sometimes you have a lot of stuff in classes, but in this particular instance, we might look at this class and we might say, well, when I look at this info, when I look at this stuff here, this looks like it could actually be its own class. And it can be. So let's turn it into its own class. And so I'm just going to do Control A, Control C to copy all of this, and then right click over here and I'm going to insert another class module. And then I will call this class module address. And then I'm going to Control A, Control V, and I did the Control A so that I don't get this in here twice. And now I can just strip out all of this other stuff that is not part of the address. And for the properties and for the methods. So this show full name method would not be part of the address class. And this, none of this printing of the employee forms from here all the way down to the bottom, none of that is going to be part of the address class. All right, so now I have an address class that it basically allows me to just input an address and then output the address to the spreadsheet. So that's good. So let's go ahead and instantiate this class as well. Actually, I'm going to do a new, let me put in another demo module. And I'll call this one address demo. And I actually forgot to do one thing. Let's go back to our employee class and delete out all of the address information. Let me just make sure I got it all in here first before. Street address, okay. All right, so we come back here and delete out anything related to the address. Take this out. And then also take out this method for writing the address to the spreadsheet, because that's also part of the address class. And oops, in the address class, I actually forgot to take out this full name. Also, this full name property, because this does not belong in the address class either. So that's gone. And now we're ready to test out this class. So now that I have my address class, I can try it out. So let me create a sub. And then I will instantiate the class. So declare the variable. Let's do employee address. Oh, and we will instantiate it at the same time. And now I can populate it, populate the properties. And I'm just going to come over to the employee demo and I'm just going to copy all this info so I don't have to type it all out again. Yes, I will take the method as well. And so then if I go ahead and run this, let me delete this. And then I'll go ahead and run this. And we see it works fine. But now the question is, how do I know who this address belongs to? Because when I had the address as part of the employee class, it was obvious who the address belonged to. The address belongs to Deborah Smith. But now that I have the class separate, I have it as a separate address class, how do I know who this belongs to? And the answer is, I don't. So the next question is, well, isn't that worse? Because now I have no idea who this address belongs to. And so, no, it's not worse. And I'll show you how we're going to associate this address with an employee. Okay, so let's do that now. So let's go back to our employee class. And all we need to do is come up to the top here. And we will add a new variable. It's going to be private again. And this one is going to be, I'll put a C there for class. And we're just going to put an address here. And we are going to declare the type to be of this address class. And so now what we can do is if I come back to the address demo and let's create a new sub here. We'll do address. We'll do employee with address. Employee with address demo. And so now I want to instantiate my employee class, which has the address class as a property. And so I'm going to create a variable employee. And this is going to be of type employee. And now, oops, again, I have to put the new in again to instantiate it. And then now I want to just populate it as we did before. And I'm gonna grab this name info so I don't have to repopulate that. So there's our name, and then when we get to the address part, now you'll see, oops, nope, I forgot one step. Now we have to, obviously, just like all the rest of these, we have to create the getters and setters. So let's do that. We'll we'll just copy this one, first name again, and we'll stick it on the end here after branch, because this is our one without the setter, so I'm just going to put it up here. And then we'll change this to, actually and then we'll change this to address from first name. And then we also need to change the type to address in both the getter and the setter. Okay, so now we have our property there. So now let's go back to our demo. Now we see there is our address right at the top. And so I click address, but then how do I get to the properties within the address? And it's the same way as we get to the properties in any other class. We just type another dot, and there's all our properties for the address class. And so now I can do, I can just populate these. The city equals whatever. But we can put, if we're gonna, if we were to do it this way, then we would have to do each one separately, like this. We do need to preface each one with the address. So we can put another with statement in here if we'd like. So if we do with dot address, and then we can put them in here like this. We do the street address that way as well. And so now we have the address associated with the employee. And I forgot to put my end with here. And so, we don't have anything to print out the employee. Well, we kind of do. So if I put this here, if I put the print employee forms here, and then I put the print address or write address to the spreadsheet, they won't come out in the same place, but we will be able to see them both. So this one's going to come out in the immediate window, and this one's going to come out on the spreadsheet. So if I run this, oops, variable not defined. Okay. I've got another error here. What happened is I forgot to see. So I'm just going to put, I am going to put a bookmark here, if I can find it, right there. Put my bookmark so I can easily jump back to that spot. So what happened is, I have the C in front of the address here, and when I changed the name from the copying over, I just didn't add the C to the address. So I'm going to go here to my bookmark. That'll take me right to this spot I bookmarked. And I just need to put a C here everywhere, which I should have done when I did the find and replace, but I didn't. So here we are. All right, so now this will work. So let me do this again. So oops. Nope, because I didn't put it here too. Now it will work, or not. What is my problem now? Object variable or with block variable not set. Okay, so what's happened is a couple of things. If I go to this employee class, first of all, I should have included this C here that I have in front of the address, and I just put it there because I like to know that it's a class if it's a property. And so if I come down to the getters and setters, and I just add a C, oops, and I just add a C everywhere, which I should have done when I did the find and replace, but I forgot, then this should be fine. But the other problem is that I copied this from a string. We copied this from the first name property, which is a string. And I did actually remember to change the data type. However, I forgot that this is actually an object. And as I mentioned earlier, when you have a simple data type, like an enum, which is actually a long data type, or a string, when you have a simple data type like that, you use the let statement. But when you have any kind of object type property, which would be like a range, an Excel range, or a class, or just something declared as an object, or anything like that, any kind of complex data type, then you need to use the set keyword. And if you remember from our previous videos, you need to put the set variable here, just like you would do with a range, like if you were setting the value, but you don't need that equal sign. But just like if you were setting the range in regular code, or any object that you were setting the value of, and you have to put the set keyword. And so we have to do that here as well with our property. So sorry about that. I completely forgot about that. But now we have that in. And so let's go back to our address demo and get rid of that. Let's run it. And we still got a problem. And the problem is that I forgot something else as well. So let's go back to the employee class. And the other thing that I forgot is this variable we need to instantiate. So there's a couple ways we can do that, and I'm just going to show you one way right now. We just put the new keyword in there, and then our code will work fine. So let's go back to our demo and run this, and now we should see. So now we see that this address over here has changed. Okay, so that was I'm sorry, it's been a little while since I've written some code, so some of this stuff is coming back to me. So that was the problem. We have to first of all, I wanted to make sure I put the C, just because that's just a personal preference, because I like to know it's a class, and so then I know it has more properties and things like that when I'm looking at it. When I'm looking at it here, see, then I know it's got a C, I know it's a class. And then the other thing was that we needed to include the set keyword in the setter in 3 places. So we needed to make sure that we put the set keyword here, here, and here, because it is an object. And then we also needed to instantiate the class, and so we put the new keyword here. All right, so that's that. And so the next thing that I wanted to show you was, if we look at our employee class, we might look at this more and say, well, could I do that again? Because when I look at this, I see, well, first name and last name, and also this full name. They kind of seem like they could also belong in their own class, like a person class. Because, and let me digress a little bit. Let me go back to this employee class. One advantage of having this, or I'm sorry, the address class. One advantage of having this address class separate is that an address is very generic. It is something, it's a pattern that is used over and over and over again, and not just for employees. So you might have an address for, patients in a hospital or a doctor's office, or customers, or students, or even non-human entities, like a business has an address, right? A grocery store, or, a car mechanic, or whatever, just any kind of business has an address as well. So it's good. And so we could add that. Say we had another class that was called, students, and then we could attach the address class to that as a property, and we could do the same thing here, and we don't have to rewrite any of this code, and we just stick it in there and it's ready to go. So that's another advantage of classes for people who are wondering what are some more advantages of classes. And so let me hop back to this employee class. And, I might look at this stuff and say, well, this stuff seems like it could be its own class as well, because there's lots of different, like we said, students, patients, things like that. They all are going to have the first name and the last name. And so let's also create another class. I'll just copy all copy this whole class, and then we will insert another class module. And this one we will call person. And so let me copy over this data, and then I'll just get rid of everything that is not related to the person. So I'll get rid of employment type, employee number, department, branch, and actually I'm gonna keep the address in here. So let me delete all that, and then I need to delete these getters and setters as well, down to branch. And again, I'll leave the address, getters and setters in here. And then I'll leave these two methods that are for the name stuff that we're putting in the person class, and I'll get rid of all this methods for the employment stuff. Okay, so now I have a class that is called person, and it has the first name, the last name. It has this address class, which will hold all of our address information. And so I have the getters and setters for the first name, the last name, and the address class. And then I have this property to get the full name, and I have the property, or to create the full name rather, and then this property this method to show the full name. Okay, and so now if I go back to my employee class and I take out all of that person stuff that I just put in, take out the first name and the last name, and actually I will just replace this with a person class, and this is going to be of type person, this class I just created. And then I'll just change this first name, I'll just change this to person, and I'll remember to put the C in this time, and I'll do a replace all, and then it's going to be of type person. Oops, what just happened? Did I not do that right? Oh, I didn't change this to first name. So replace all, and then I'll get this data type is C person, and I'll put it there. And so now I have that one. I can take it out last name because we deleted it up here. And so I now have my person class here, and I have it here. And let me get rid of this property that creates a full name and this method that displays the full name, because those are now in the person class. And so now when I look at my employee class, I have this person class. I have some stuff that is actually related to an employee specifically, and probably nothing else. I mean, maybe a department and a branch, but just for the sake of the argument, this is just employee related stuff. And then I have my address class, which is also kind of generic. And so then I have my getters and setters for my person stuff. I have my getters and setters for the employee related stuff here. And then I have my getters and setters for the address class. And then I have this print employee forms and, you know, all these individual methods that print for the different employment types. So that's looking pretty good. So now if I come back over, and by the way, this is not going to run anymore because the syntax is no longer correct. And I will do a video explaining to you why it's no longer correct. It has something to do with something called qualification. If you've ever heard about that, I'll be doing a video on qualification at some point so that we really understand why this no longer works. But anyway, you know, that's not going to work anymore with the changes we've made to this employee class. So let me I'll create a third module up here, or rather a third demo module. And I'll call this one, I'll just call this final demo. Okay. And in our final demo, let's create a sub to, this is going to be the final employee class demo. Okay. And so now I'm going to instantiate my employee class, which actually, if I'm being lazy, it's the same as this. We're just going to declare and instantiate this employee class because we just made changes to it. So let me come back here and I'll just copy that, or paste it rather. And I actually could have got this as well. Not that it's that hard to type, but I guess I'm being lazy. And so I do that, and now we see if I want to start populating this, I can put in my person info, and again, there is my, oh yeah, I forgot. See, we moved the address class into the person class, and so now it's showing up as a property of the person class. It's no longer a property of the employee class. So I can start populating this info, but I like to do a with statement as I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to put in another with statement here. I'm going to do with C person, and I'll put in the first name is going to be Sally. The last name is going to be Jones, I guess. And then what else do I have here? First name, last name, full name. Full name actually doesn't even really need to be. I can have it. Yeah, full name, because if we want to see it at some point, then we can see it. We can get it from outside of the class if we wanted to say print it to the spreadsheet or something. So I'll just leave it there as public so it's out here. But then that's it, I think, and then we'll show the name. So remember, it's going to pop up in a message box. And then inside of this one, I'll do another with for the address. And you don't have to do it this way. If you find it confusing to do it this way, you can always just do it, you know, you can do it, do the person dot address dot street address equals. But then you have to fully, again, here's this concept, and I am going to do a video about it. I'm going to say this phrase, and hopefully you kind of get it from the context, but you have to fully qualify it. You have to do the whole 9 yards every time you type it out. And this is actually the way you would do it in some other languages under certain circumstances, but I'm going to do a video on that at some point. So anyway, just know that that's another way that you can do it. Especially if this is confusing you right now and you just want to be able to work with it. Okay, and so, again, I would just put in a street address. And so we're going to do 234 Maple Drive. And we'll just put in, we'll do a suite 101. And then we'll do the city is going to be Dallas. The state will be Texas. And the zip code is going to be whatever Dallas's zip code is. That's guaranteed to be wrong, but it's just a demo. Okay. And then what else do we have? With the address, we have this method where we can write it to the spreadsheet. And so if I go ahead and run this code, we should, actually I don't need my immediate window up because this is going to show in a message box and this is going to write to the spreadsheet over here. So if I just go ahead and run this, well, no, I got myself another problem. What is the problem? What did it say? I didn't even read it. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's what it was going to say anyway. So the problem was, so I got this, yep, same thing. Didn't put the new keyword in there. So if you're paying attention, you might have caught me on that. And so now I should be able to go ahead and run this. This one. Nope. I'm pretty sure I'm repeating all of my same mistakes over again, which I guess is okay. So, because now we get to go over the concept once again and really solidify it in our minds. You can learn from my mistakes. So I'm going to stop this and I'm going to go to the employee class. And what happened is I didn't create the getters and setters for this. Or no, I did. But again, I didn't use the set keyword. So I need to put the set. That actually gets me fairly often, regardless of how much I've been programming lately. Okay, so drum roll, please. Ta-da! Sally Jones. And there's her address. Okay, I'm back. I actually had ended my video, but then I realized that I made not really kind of a mistake. So when I created this person class and I added this address class as a property of the class, I should have also come in here and then just deleted it here from this employee class. It's not going to cause any technical problems because it's completely valid. We have an address that belongs to the person, and then we also have an address that belongs to the employee. But in this case, it's confusing because that is presumably the same person, right? So we don't need this. We don't need this one in the employee class because it's already in the person class. However, I do want to show you here with the demo. It's perfectly fine to have them both, because if I were to, so this address is a property of this person class, but I also have the address here that is a property of this employee class. And so what I can do is I can add another address here. And I'll make this, I'll do the street address, I'll make it a different address so that you can see. This will be 456 Dandelion Lane. And I'll just put the city will be Miami. and the state will be Florida, and the zip code is, once again, guaranteed to be incorrect. Okay, and now, and then I'll write it to the spreadsheet. And so now if I do this, I'm gonna stop this so that we can see what happens, and I'll erase this. And so now if I run this, let me make sure I got all my widths, my width. So now if I run this code, here is my pop-up with the name. And then if I run this code, this 234 Maple Drive, we see that gets written here. And now we come to this address, and it changes to the Dandelion Lane. And so we are able to store two different addresses. And this actually reminds me of something that I had meant to cover, an additional point. And so let me just show you here. I'll take this out because it doesn't really make any sense. Even though it works, it doesn't really make any sense here. So I'll just take it out. I got to take out the variable there, and then I'll come down here and I'll take out the getters and setters. And now it's gone. And you see how it's a lot easier when you do it this way. It's also a lot easier to modify your code when you do it this way, when you have them encapsulated into the classes like this, into the separate modules. But now if I go to my person class where I have my address, I can copy this and I can add another address. So maybe I will make this address, make it a home address, and I'll make this one a business address. Business. And so now I need to also create a getter and setter for this, and I need to change the name on this one. So I need to, first of all, I'll just copy this. And then I will change the name of this from address to address home. And then on this one, I'm going to change it to business. Okay. And so now, and these are both of type, okay, so now, so when I did the find and replace, it changed, because I only searched for address, so it changed the name of the class itself. And so I need to just take these out. This is type C address. All of them. These are both type C address. Because that's the data type for this variable, this property, which is the address class. So these need to be as C address. Okay. And so now that I have got my home address, getters and setters, I got my business address, getters and setters, and I have the variables up here, and I got them both instantiated. So now this should work. So now if I come over to my final demo, let me do, but now this, we don't have a property for this anymore, right? Because we changed the name of this to home address. And so we're going to have to change this to home address. And then, and I need to move this. This is going to be the business address, but I need to move it because right now this is listed as a property of the employee class as we used to have it, but it should actually be a property of the person class because we put it in here as a property of the person class. So I need to move this. So I'll cut that and I will paste it right below the home address. And again, we need to rename this. This needs to be the business address. Okay, and so now we have our name, the person information, we have the home address, and we have the business address. So let's erase this, and we'll run this once again. And again, I'll put my breakpoints in here so that you can see it happening, because otherwise this address is gonna be overwritten so fast it will look like only this code ran. So there's our name. Here's our first address. This home address is Maple Drive, and then the business address is Dandelion Lane. So as you see, when we have abstracted this address class and we've made it more generic, we can reuse it. And you saw how easy it was to reuse it. All we had to do was create it as a property and then put in the getters and setters, and it's good to go. That's all we had to do. Super easy. And then we just add the person class to the employee class, and we just have to add this one variable with its getter and setter, and we have 2 addresses that we can add to the employee. Okay, so I think that really is the end of this video now. Anything else I forgot, I think it's just gonna have to go into another video, but I truly really do think that was everything that I wanted to cover in this video. So I know that was a lot, but hopefully you were able to follow along. And again, if you enjoy my videos, please do like, subscribe, and share, because it does help me out. Thank you. Goodbye.